All right, we'll get started while everyone kind of trickles in. So I guess welcome everyone to today's webinar Wednesday on I'll call it the new CompactLogix 5390. It's really the upcoming CompactLogix 5390. And we'll get in at the end as far as, expected availability dates and whatnot. So my name is Dan Wagner. I'm the software control manager on the industrial automation team. And then with me, I also have Alex Searer, who's an automation specialist, also on the industrial automation team in the software controls group. So Alex and I will both be sharing a portion of today's presentation. So I guess we never can really talk about anything new without talking about, I won't call it old yet, we'll say existing. So the CompactLogix life cycle update. So you'll hear us referencing the new controller as 5390 mostly throughout the presentation. That is the family. So I'm sure some folks on the call are familiar more with the catalog number. So when I say 5370 family, that's the 1769 catalog number items. 5380 family is going to be 5069 catalog number. And then 5390, again, being the newer one, that'll actually be 5034 catalog number. We'll worry about that more in the future when it's actually available to order. But so basically life cycle update for the existing CompactLogix families, 5380, which is the 5069 family, that's going to remain active. That'll be active for the foreseeable future. You can see along the bottom of the slide there, kind of how Rockwell classifies each step in the life cycle. So today, with 5390 not being available today, if you're looking at new installations, you're really going to want to be in that 5380 family. The 1769 family, which, as you can see on the release dates, has now been out for, 14, 15 years on some of the processors, even longer on the IO. That is now officially in the active mature stage, and active mature generally means less than 10 years of life cycle left. So, less than 10 years could mean 3 years or could mean 5 years. I tend to think that 1769 will kind of be in that 5-year range, considering that the new CompactLogix is coming out this year. They tend to not carry 3 families in the same portfolio. So again, 1769, if you have it installed today, I wouldn't be, picking everything up to replace it. I wouldn't be installing it new. And it's just something to have on your radar is, it's an extra step in the life cycle. And then officially end of life, though, is the L3, the 1769 L3 safety controllers and the armor controllers. I don't think many, if anyone, use the armor controller, at least in our APR. But if you do have those 1769 L3 safety controllers, those are officially end of life. And they have a discontinued date currently. I think it's sometime this year. As you can see there in red, version 38 will be the last Studio 5000 version that supports a lot of these controllers and the 5370 family. The L1 will remain active for now, although version 38 is still the last 5000 version that will support the L1. So overall messaging is just, if you have CompactLogix lifecycle questions of what you're using currently, definitely let us know. I forgot to mention, but if you have any questions as we're going through the presentation today, just go ahead and put them in the chat. And then if we have time at the end, we can address the questions in the chat, or we'll follow up with you after the fact. So I believe that's about it for the life cycle update. So I'm going to hand it over to Alex, and he's going to give you an overview of the upcoming 5390 CompactLogix.
Thanks, Dan, and thank you all for joining us today. As you can tell, we are excited to introduce you to the 5390 or the L9 CompactLogix. It's been designed to automate more for less, providing consistent architecture using the PointMax I/O platform, while reducing your panel and cabinet footprint and SKUs, all while prioritizing security without compromising connectivity. So you'll see as we present the rest of it that there are, I'm going to say, consolidated choices that allow you to select, quicker and easier with some less confusion. We'll talk about how you save a ton of space as you switch to this platform, and the different benefits of using the PointMax I/O platform. You also get a lot more OPC UA options. So for anybody exfiltrating data that way, that'll be very helpful for you. To put some numbers to those promises, on general, you can expect a 2x performance increase. So that'll be a 2x increase in ladder execution speed, as well as a 1.5 increase in safety reaction time, all while being about 25% smaller on the DIN rail. It's designed with security in mind from the ground up, which is how it achieves that IEC 62443-4-2 certification. Additional security considerations are the SIP security features, which allow you to secure your communications using cryptographic certificates from end to end. It also has a robust system log or syslog that can be inspected by different IT tools for event anomalies to increase your security awareness. All that folds into the Cybersecurity Resilience Act in the European markets and some other regulations coming down the pike in the US markets. The local and remote I/O platform, as we've talked about, is the 5034 PointMax system, which can support any combination of up to 32 I/O modules, starting at the 2 megabyte processors. And of course, there are more ways to connect with the dual 1 gig Ethernet ports and the native OPC UA I was talking about. Onto the physical anatomy of the controller. Under the access store, you'll find that we have switched to USB-C and micro SD cards. Of course, on the USB-C, do your firmware update, online editing, upload downloads, all the stuff you're used to. And note that it does not ship with a micro SD card, but it is available for purchase. We have also done away with the old run mode key switches to just a regular little toggle switch. On the front, you also can see that you have the catalog number as usual and the little CompactLogix card so that every controller comes with safety. We have the removable terminal block for the power, as well as a laser etched QR code that, when you scan with your phone, will allow you to register the product, increase that warranty, as well as quickly access any documentation you may need. More on the space savings. You can see it's 3 1/3 inches in width, almost 5 inches in height, and about 3 1/4 inches deep. Doing the math for you, that's about half inch savings in width, 3/4 inch savings in height, and 1.5 inches in depth. That translates to 25% area savings on the panel backplane and 48% in the cabinet, volumetrically. The space savings compound when you consider the reduced clearances for the platform. So decreasing from 2 inches on all sides to 1 inches on all sides, it gets you over a 50% area savings on the backplane. This allows you to fit more in your cabinets to expand your I/O in existing systems or retrofit existing systems without having to completely redesign your cabinets. A side-by-side comparison of a 5380 system and a 5390 system with 16 digital inputs and outputs, 4 analog inputs, and 8 digital inputs and outputs. Ends up with a change of about 2.5 inches in width and that one inch in height and 1.5 inches in depth. Just take note that on the 5069 platform, we did just release 32 channel modules that can help cut down some space on the 5069 platform. On the PointMax 5034, it is going to remain the 16 and 8 channel offerings. Requests for more data that you guys may get, require more processing power, which is a great reason to take a look at the 5390. This underlines the importance of the scalable hardware and programming offerings that we have here. Continuing on to the preview of 5390 and PointMax together. Here you can see all the colorful array of cards we have. Take note that for digital, that we're only looking at digital here. So 24 volts DC, no 120 offering. AC is in the discussion in the future, as well as adding the NFC chip that you may see on the PointMax platform for configuring IP addresses. You can see it on here, this being the Ethernet adapter. That NFC chip in the 5034 Ethernet adapter, you can use Rockwell's Device Tools app on your smartphone to configure the IP address without power. You can even do this while it remains in the box without having to break the warranty seal, allowing you to have a configured replacement on the shelf ready to go. It also provides removal and insertion under power, IRUP, which gets you that option for the first time in the CompactLogix family.
And just to add an additional note, so PointMax is available today as strictly remote I/O. It'll only work remotely on a 5069 controller or ControlLogix L8 or L9. So this will be the local I/O for 5390, as Alex mentioned. But if you have an interest today in the PointMax platform via remote I/O, we can have those conversations. And again, to highlight a couple of things versus the traditional Point I/O, you have, sorry, I saw that question pop up. For the traditional Point I/O versus PointMax, you have maximum density of 16 on the DC inputs and outputs, single width on the safety inputs and outputs. We do have some partner modules from like AMCI and Spectrum for like stepper control and energy management, respectively. And then there is a universal module as well, and a universal digital module inside of PointMax where you can configure inputs and outputs on the same module. So again, happy to take a deeper dive into PointMax. And I saw the question come through on the safety for the 5390. We'll cover that in a few slides, but the short answer is yes, there is safety in the 5390.
So here you can see how, we got graphics.
Yes.
Oh yeah, so on the lower memory from 400 kilobyte to 1 megabyte, you get the 16 I/O modules. When you switch to 2 megs and up, you get the full 32 modules with only having to add that 5034 EXP module. Note, you do not need that EXP module when you're switching between, well, I guess there's no analog and digital, so that's why you don't need it.
Well, there is analog, no AC and DC.
That's what I meant. So you don't need an FPD, say, to switch between AC and DC. Here you can see how functionality has been consolidated. You no longer have to spec out whether the processor needs motion or safety because it comes with both. On the right side, you can see how the memory scheme has changed a little bit. 4 megabytes has been eliminated, but 400 kilobytes has been added. That's, that ends up being 20 times higher than the highest MicroLogix, 10 times higher than the highest Micro 800. But it provides a gateway to the Logix platform on these smaller applications. Once you've done that work and you get to do it in Studio 5000 instead of Design Workbench, it allows you to leverage that existing body of work as you grow your application and your programming without having to worry about hitting those performance barriers. Continuing the theme of simplification, you can see that the amount of safety memory a controller has now matches the amount of standard memory it has. So from the bottom to the top, just a reminder, safety is enabled by default. If you don't need it, you just simply turn it off. And if you need it later, it's there. You will still need the safety editor, but gives you the benefit of being able to enable it after the fact without having to replace the controller. It may help reduce some friction if you need to add a safety process to a cell that previously hasn't needed it. The characteristics have been organized into the following tiers, further simplifying the specification process. Compared on the low end of the 5380, say a 306 controller, where you had 2 motion axes with 16 Ethernet nodes, 8 local I/O modules, and no OPC UA nodes, you get 8 motion axes, 60 Ethernet nodes, 16 local I/O, and 300 OPC UA nodes in that lower memory tier. In that middle tier, you get 32 axes, 200 Ethernet, 32 local I/O modules, and 2000 OPC UA nodes. And at the highest, you get, or that 10 megabyte mark, you get 128 axes, 300 Ethernet nodes, 32 local modules, and 4,000 OPC UA nodes. That, compared to the highest 5380, the 310, which only had 32 motion axes, 180 Ethernet nodes, 31 local modules, and 300 OPC UA nodes. So this really highlights how the 5390 is designed for you to do more, in the space without having to jump the whole way up to the ControlLogix platform.
Okay. Thanks, Alex. I'm going to wrap things up with a quick MicroLogix 1400 discussion. So there's not a life cycle update with MicroLogix 1400. It is still active mature. It's been active mature for a number of years now. Speculation is, though, that one of the reasons that MicroLogix 1400 has hung on as long as it has is because there hasn't been sort of a pathway to 5,000. Some customers migrated all their MicroLogix 1400s to Micro 800s. Some have kind of held out, just from, maybe not preferring the Micro 800 software. So one of the big reasons for the 400 KB memory variant in the 5390 is to be a migration path for 1400. I guess if you want to read the writing on the wall, it's likely that this would kind of begin the swan song for the MicroLogix 1400. Obviously, as soon as we have any official life cycle update on that family, we'll let you know. But again, it's been active mature now for a while. Components for it are hard to get. Every year it gets older. And the Logix 500 software, everything else in the Logix 500 line is discontinued. It's only the 1400 that is hung on. So again, sort of read the writing on the wall there. So that 400 kilobyte memory option gives you, we don't know the pricing on it yet. I'll start with that. We believe it would be at least competitive with a micro level controller, but you would have all the functionality and then some that you would get out of the 1400. And then even with the serial port on the 1400, you would have the ability to add a point max serial module. Really the only thing that 1400 is going to have that the 5390 wouldn't is 120 volt AC power, which probably wouldn't be a showstopper for most. So again, something to keep in mind as you're looking at new projects or coming across. Generally we communicate anything in the MicroLogix family is discontinued except for the 1400. So something to keep an eye on there. And then just to give you a quick comparison of the MicroLogix 1400 dimensions versus the 5390. So typically you're only going to have a handful of analog IO embedded on a 1400, or a handful of digital IO embedded on a 1400 with maybe a couple configurable points. Width wise, there's probably not going to be a scenario where you would exceed the width replacing a 1400 with a 5390 setup. Height wise, it is a little higher, but not as much higher as a 5069. So you can see there maybe a little over half an inch. And again, with the reduced clearance, you at least have a better chance. And we all know that anywhere that there's a 1400 in a panel, it's packed up against the wireway. So that becomes a variable in migrating it. But this is going to be as close to a smaller footprint as you can get. And then these are the catalog numbers planned for the initial release here at the end of the calendar year. So targeting still currently November, December timeframe. This will be a heavy focus at Automation Fair, which, if anyone has Automation Fair on the mind, that's going to be mid-November, the week before Thanksgiving. If you go online, the Automation Fair 2026 website is live. Registration will open in August. Early bird registration will, but information is online already.
It's in Boston for anybody that's interested.
Yeah, thank you for that. It is in Boston, so closer for us. But yeah, so these are the initial planned catalog releases, as you can see, and what Alex highlighted earlier. Much less SKUs to work with than with 5069. Again, you have safety enabled in each controller. You are able to turn it off. But just a cleaner ordering scheme. And then the XT variants as well. So yeah, for those not familiar with XT, XT's kind of become the new and improved conformal coating, where things are actually now manufactured for increased temperature, but also high corrosion applications. So instead of it being like a standard part that's dipped or coated, like conformal coating is, XT variants are actually manufactured to be more susceptible to higher temps and higher corrosion.
As well as lower temps.
Correct, yes, thank you. So that's it for the 5390. I'd maybe seen a couple, I'm gonna stop sharing here, maybe seen a couple questions come through. Okay, so just the one. So yeah, safety options for 5390. So yeah, I think we highlighted that again. Safety, you'll see the same thing in the ControlLogix L9, where safety is put into every controller, and you just choose whether or not you're using it. For those who aren't aware, one reason for that is to reduce SKUs. The other reason is if you look at 5069, the 5069, L8, basically all of the Logix controllers to this point have the same price for a SIL2 controller versus a standard controller. So it never really made sense to have an extra catalog number or something that was the same price. So that's what really started that change. So with that, if there are any more questions, if you want to put them in the chat quickly, and then if not, I would just encourage you to reach out to us, either me and Alex directly, or your account manager, if you wanted to see any further information on the 5390. As soon as we have an idea for release date or pricing or whatnot, because we don't have list pricing yet for this platform, but we'll certainly start to roll some of that information out. So thank you all again for the time, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.